A helicopter was shown hovering over the Pacific Ocean, carrying several scientists alternately under the orders of an officer named Captain Barnes. He explained that something unusual had been discovered, necessitating the scientists' expertise for analysis. One of these scientists was a psychologist named Norman, who was known for writing about alien life forms. His writings had apparently been used as a guideline by the Navy. It was revealed that the alien object had been buried at a depth of approximately 8,000 meters and had been there for almost 300 years, dating back to an estimated landing in 1709. The team speculated that there might be life inside the object, believed to be a spaceship, so the scientists were sent to interact with and study the origins of the aliens while trying to avoid a potential invasion. Barnes mentioned that Navy sonar detected a low hum indicating something moving inside the ship. As the team prepared to dive, Norman confessed to a mathematician named Harry about a false report, and Harry agreed to keep it a secret. The scientists then boarded a submarine called Mini-Sub, which took them to a habitat built by the Navy as a base for research. As they descended, the team marveled at the enormous size of the spaceship. Navy divers prepared a robot to open the spaceship's door, allowing the scientists easy access. Unfortunately, when the scientists reached the airlock, they couldn't open it, so an astrophysicist had to take action. The attempt was successful, but left a mark on the door, which Harry found strange because the ship hadn't been scratched at all when it hit the ocean floor but was damaged by a simple tool. At the same time, a biologist named Beth detected heat emanating from the door, prompting Barnes to ask everyone to step back. The door then opened on its own. Without delay, they entered the spaceship and soon discovered footprints on the floor, indicating someone had previously been inside. Barnes divided the team into two to explore more rooms. Norman and Beth discussed the false report, with Norman admitting he took ideas from science fiction writers. During this discussion, they unknowingly stepped onto a platform that transported them to another room, where they were shocked to find a corpse. Upon further examination, Beth identified the corpse as human, not humanoid, and determined the cause of death was blunt force trauma. The body was also clutching a snack called smokehouse almonds. Beth concluded that the ship was of US origin and examined the computer, finding records in English, including a flight log dated with the year ending in 43 and one entry marked as an unknown event. When Beth selected the unknown event, a hologram appeared, showing a spaceship entering a black hole.
Oh, Norman.
After informing their colleagues about their findings, Barnes showed them the cargo hold, where they discovered a large sphere. No one could explain what the sphere was, but fearing it might be a trap, Barnes decided to install security cameras around it. Additionally, Norman noticed that the sphere did not reflect their shadows, despite its color suggesting it should. The group returned to their habitat to discuss their theories. Ted, an astrophysicist, speculated that the ship had not landed or crashed, but had become trapped in a black hole, inadvertently traveling through time. This intriguing theory was cut short when they received a warning about an impending storm on the surface, requiring them to return immediately. This development frustrated Ted, as they were on the brink of making the greatest discovery in history. While in his room, Harry explained to Norman a strange and disturbing prediction that they all would end. He also pointed out the oddity of the ship entering the black hole being recorded as unknown. Another puzzling thing was Harry's expressed desire to enter something, though he left his sentence unfinished and soon went to sleep. Sometime later, an alarm sounded, prompting Barnes to check the surveillance cameras. To his shock, Harry was seen approaching the mysterious sphere, and his shadow suddenly appeared on it before Harry himself vanished. Barnes announced that they couldn't return to the surface until they found Harry. Hearing this, Norman quickly donned his diving suit and headed to the spaceship. Shortly after, as he stared at the sphere, Harry suddenly reappeared, lying unconscious. Upon examination, Harry's vital signs were normal, but he remained unconscious. As Norman looked back at the sphere, he saw his own shadow on it and a power outage occurred, preventing Barnes from seeing what was happening. Moments later, the power was restored using internal energy, leading Barnes to conclude they had to stay longer. While Norman brought Harry back to the habitat, an officer named Elise took the video storage unit to Minisub to reset the time settings. Barnes explained to Ted that they had to do this every 12 hours to inform the Navy that the team was okay, and Minisub would automatically ascend to the surface. On her return trip, Elise saw many jellyfish swimming nearby. Initially they looked beautiful, but soon they approached and started attaching to her, with some even getting inside her diving suit.
Fletcher, I want you back at the habitat on the double.
I can't get him off of me!
Just keep moving!
Later, while Beth examined Elise's body, Norman shared that he had been attacked by jellyfish as a child, which left him terrified of them ever since. Beth realized that the creatures attacking Ellis were not ordinary jellyfish. She had never encountered such a species before. The scene then shifts to a conversation between Barnes and Norman, where Barnes is extremely angry because Norman did not provide the true report about Beth's mental health history, which he just found out included a past suicide attempt. Barnes believes Beth might jeopardize the mission, leading to an argument until Ted arrives with the news that Harry has woken up. The team gathers in the kitchen, astonished as they watch Harry eating voraciously and commenting on how delicious the simple food is. Harry admits that he entered the sphere, but doesn't explain how, as the object has no visible openings or entry points. Remarkably, Harry asks for more food like someone who hasn't eaten in a long time. Norman happily obliges, but when Harry realizes he is eating squid, he panics and reveals that he dislikes squid.
Bring it up!
Stop it! Trying to talk. Come on, listen. He wants to say something.
I hate squid.
I'm sorry. Before you went into the sphere, you were convinced we all were going to die down here. You still believe it?
Yeah, I remember that. You afraid of dying, Norman?
Moments later, Barnes calls Ted to investigate some oddities. While they try to resolve the issue, Harry points out numbers on the screen and tells Ted to examine and decrypt them by following the keyboard pattern like a circle to match with the sphere. Ted does so, and the group is shocked to discover that the numbers are messages sent by a mysterious entity named Jerry. Jerry then communicates simple greetings and expresses happiness. While others are amazed, Norman is worried, thinking that if this mysterious entity can feel happiness, it can also feel anger, with unknown consequences. Norman then hears a strange noise outside and tries to ask another officer named Jane, but receives no response. He reports this to Barnes, who discovers that Jane is outside the habitat. Norman and Beth decide to go check on her. Unfortunately, they found Jane already deceased and realized the noises they heard earlier were caused by Jane's feet hitting the habitat. Beth was shocked to discover Jane's body was crushed. As they attempted to bring Jane back to the habitat, they were suddenly pelted by what seemed like eggs, and Barnes urgently instructed Norman and Beth to return because the sonar detected something large approaching them. As soon as they returned to the habitat, the entity vanished. Barnes and Norman went back to the computer room to communicate with Jerry and formulate a plan. Shockingly, Jerry sent a message inquiring about their plan, indicating that Jerry could hear everything they were saying. When Jerry stopped sending messages, the mysterious entity reappeared on the sonar, and the eggs started raining down again. Beth explained that they needed to protect the sensor system, so Barnes tried to activate the electrical current. Unfortunately, this caused a fire, and the entity got close enough for the team to see it. A giant squid-like creature that began attacking the habitat. Strangely, the noise did not disturb Harry, who was sound asleep in his room. Realizing the air pressure was dropping, Barnes sent Ted to fix it, but Ted was electrocuted and knocked unconscious when he turned the valve. As Norman turned the valve, the squid continued its attack. Barnes ordered Norman to reactivate the electrical current, which caused the squid to disappear. But then a new problem arose, a message from the mysterious entity threatening to kill them all. As the group rushed to put out the fire, Ted woke up to help, and the emergency lock was automatically activated. Barnes tried to block the door with a box, but got trapped in the door. Simultaneously, another disaster struck Ted. Once everything calmed down, Norman talked to Jerry to find out who extinguished the fire. Instead of answering, Jerry asked Norman if he liked squid, saying he could summon more of them. Norman refused and explained the phenomenon that caused the crew's deaths. In response, the entity asked them to stop calling it Jerry, which was very strange. After that, Jerry did not reply anymore. Norman then went to check on Harry, who was now awake and casually reading a book titled 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When Norman explained about the attack, Harry calmly said he knew nothing about it because he was sound asleep during the incident and mentioned that he loved the book except for page 87, which he found too frightening. Norman informed him about the dead crew members and the fact that their oxygen was running very low, but Harry remained indifferent and unusually calm. Soon after, Beth arrived and suggested they reset the time on Minisub. Norman took Beth aside and admitted his suspicion that Harry was behind the previous horrifying incidents. For safety, Norman decided to conduct the reset while asking Beth to keep an eye on Harry and keep him away from Minisub. Later, as Norman rushed out to reset the time, something strange happened on his way back. Norman felt his diving suit leaking and called for Beth's help, but to his surprise, Harry responded instead. Harry explained the valve issue, but assured Norman that everything would be fine. Norman continued moving, and upon reaching the stairs, he was startled by a strange fish. Soon after, both men saw Beth heading towards the spaceship and wondered about her intentions. When she returned, Beth explained that she was searching for food supplies to survive. However, Harry pointed out that their food supplies were more than sufficient, which made Norman angry because Beth wasn't keeping watch as they had agreed. Beth checked the cabinets and was shocked to find them full, as they had been empty before. A heated argument ensued, during which Beth mentioned the sphere. She accused Harry of entering it and not reporting anything strange, implying she might have entered the sphere herself. This revelation shocked Norman, who began to question what was happening. Beth, frustrated by her colleague's accusations, remained silent and walked away in anger. Another strange occurrence happened when Norman picked up Harry's book from the floor and tried to return it, only to find that Harry was still reading the same book. Norman opened a cabinet and found multiple copies of the same book. This made him realize that Beth was right about something odd happening inside the sphere. Norman went to the computer room to communicate with Jerry again, asking if Jerry knew what was inside the sphere. Jerry responded by asking Norman to stop calling him Jerry. Feeling desperate, Norman reviewed the numerical codes and realized that Ted had miscombined some letters, revealing that the mysterious entity's name was not Jerry, but Harry. Meanwhile, Beth left the habitat again to plant explosives. When she returned, Norman explained that the mysterious entity was actually Harry, which also explained the appearance of strange creatures around them. To clarify further, Norman asked Beth to read page 87 of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which described a giant monster with long tentacles. The next page was blank, because Harry hated squid and was too scared to continue reading. All of this happened after Harry encountered the sphere, leading Norman to believe that the mysterious sphere gave Harry the power to manifest his fears. They both agreed that they needed to make Harry sleep deeply to stop the phenomena. They searched the medical supplies for a sedative and sneaked into Harry's room. Norman jumped on Harry to hold him down, while Beth administered the injection, rendering Harry unconscious. Shortly afterward, they received a message from the surface informing them that the weather had improved, allowing them to return to the surface within 6 hours. The scene then shows Norman in the bathroom, suddenly attacked by an unknown creature. Luckily, Beth arrives, captures the creature, and identifies it as the world's most venomous snake, which shouldn't be there. Beth asks Norman to meet her in the lab, but once he arrives, she locks him inside. She explains that it is Norman who manifested the snakes and that she needs to sedate him. When Norman is confused and disbelieving, Beth reminds him that Harry is still asleep and therefore couldn't be responsible. She also recalls the incident with the jellyfish that attacked Elise, noting that the jellyfish was unrecognizable and that Norman had confessed his fear of them, making everything clear. Since Norman refuses to inject himself, Beth takes drastic action by depleting all the oxygen and flooding the lab. Instead of surrendering, Norman grabs an oxygen mask and escapes through the hatch. While Norman is outside, Beth reviews files on the computer and finds a video of Barnes and Norman discussing Beth's mental health, which ended in an argument. This discovery makes Beth anxious, and she leaves the room. When Norman returns, he hears Beth crying and tries to comfort her. At this moment, they both realize they must have entered the sphere like Harry, but have no memory of it. Speaking of Harry, he has now woken up and demands an explanation. Norman explains to Harry, as he did to Beth, that the sphere makes their fears become real. He suggests this could have happened to the spaceship crew, leading them to kill each other out of fear. At the same time, the system announces that explosives outside the habitat have been activated, giving them approximately 13 minutes to evacuate. Beth explains that the explosives were meant to blast the coral, but she placed them around the habitat as a defense against potential monstrous creatures. Initially, Beth thinks the activation of the bombs is a new oddity, but then realizes that her own powers might have caused it, as she had previously considered ending everything, just as she had in the past. The bad news continues when Harry explains that the explosives will destroy everything due to the liquid hydrogen on the spacecraft. The trio rushes to the mini-sub, but once inside they can't start it, and suddenly teleport inside the spacecraft, forcing them to run around frantically searching for an exit. After wandering aimlessly, they arrive at the sphere room, where Norman's reflection tells them to press a button. Realizing what's happening, Norman asks his friends to calm their minds, which transports them back to the mini-sub.
We die down here.
Maybe he's right.
Die here. And you're not gonna die here. Leave me. You're not gonna die down here. Not gonna get back. We're in the mini-sub. This isn't real.
Look, just leave me.
This is your manifestation. Let it go. Time to die.
After pressing the button, the mini-sub moves to the surface just in time, saving them from the explosion. Sometime later, while on a ship, the group finds a private space to discuss. They agree not to inform the Navy about what happened, as they believe the military wouldn't believe them, especially since the explosion likely destroyed the sphere. Beth thinks they still have the powers given by the sphere, but is afraid to reveal them due to potential misuse. However, Norman believes the power is already in the wrong hands. Harry suggests they use the power to forget everything they discovered, which might explain the unknown event in the spacecraft's log. The three hold hands and think about forgetting everything about the mission and the mysterious power. The film ends with the sphere emerging from the sea and flying at high speed through Earth's atmosphere, eventually being swallowed by outer space. When the three scientists open their eyes, they suddenly don't understand why they are holding hands. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.